Well, I've been told that this episode of the 7th Valkyrie podcast was brought to you by me, Bram Cooper. Not sure what all these wires and doohickeys they got hooked up to me are, but if you'd like to get the full experience, including all available seasons, extra artwork, bonus features, and behind-the-scenes content, you can download the 7th Valkyrie application at the link in the description. Must be one of those weird things coming over from Valkyrie, but I heard it's a good time. Hey guys, this is Colin again, and it's wonderful to hear from you. I guess I'm not really hearing from you. I actually have been hearing from you guys. I just turned myself in circles right there. I might cut this if this was less of a rambly, wonderful closet podcast, but it's not. So you get all the little sidebars and notes and anyway. I'm not talking about whether or not we're talking. That was just sort of a I get weird about like the little habits that people have as part of podcasting and creating, and sometimes I get weird in my head about it. Anyway, I'm now half started this podcast twice in a row. So this is the 7th Valkyrie podcast, and the title of this one was kind of like how we got here. I wrote the title down as I was putting together this podcast notes. And I just wanted to give you guys kind of the full story and the full scope and picture of how long this has been bubbling, because it's really cool to see people starting to take notice, and as I'm getting closer to the finish of season 2, as I've kind of moved around things in my life so that I can do that and stay in touch with you guys a little bit more. I just wanted to, you guys got to know me, you got to know my belief system, and now I wanted to share a little bit about how we got here, to me talking to you in the closet, 7th Valkyrie style. And we're going to focus on the 7th Valkyrie because otherwise I'll be telling you literally my whole life story. So I was a writer as a kid. I was a storyteller. I was always making up stories, and then we had bear books in kindergarten where there were these little things, and I told the story of Snaky Dude, and it was all Snaky Dude was my adventure, and then I kind of terribly ripped off some other podcasts for a while, or like all my favorite TV shows on Nickelodeon for a while. In my other bear books, because I was lazy and I just wanted to put my friends in them. This was the start of my fan fiction phase, of course. But then in 5th grade, I decided, oh my God, I want to write a book. And so I called it Shadow Strike, because I was like, oh, Shadow Strike, it's going to be dark, and I'm a 5th grader, and I know all the darkness and dark. General idea of it. Kind of started putting it together, but I was really lazy. It really is hard to write a book. It's way more exciting to tell people about the book you're planning to write than it is to actually write it. And I learned this over and over and over again over the course of the next little while, because I kept refining the idea, but never actually writing all that much. Like in 8th grade, I took a bunch of my writings and I was like, no, now it's Shadow Light, because it's all about the difference, and like you got a bad guy, but he's doing bad things for good reasons. And I was like, I'm in 8th grade, this is deep, and I'm going to change the world. Because I just wanted to make, like, I don't even know. I wanted to tell this story. I wanted to be a part of it. I'm a huge dork for fantasy, for battle shonen, for fucking all sorts of things. Didn't get written again. And then 10th grade, I started brainstorming something that I called the Smiling Reaper. Because I was like, oh man, we're going to have a guy. He's a bad guy, but he's a good guy. And I like bad guys and good guys. And I like this idea of like, I was kind of going through the, like growing up and like having all these cheesy characters who are, white bread as hell. And I wanted someone a little bit more gray, but I wanted it to still be kind of hopeful. And it's funny because even today, like as I look back on this series, it's like, oh, it's kind of a combination of like it's a gritty take on a battle shonen, which all you guys don't know this, but this is like shows like Dragon Ball Z, fucking Bleach, One Piece. Like these are shows that are basically like, I have a hero and I'm going to learn my powers and become amazing and become the greatest hero. And they just keep going, and I wanted it like that, with like the optimism, but with like a gritty, it's going to be gritty, anyway. So 10th grade, I did a giant world building session that lasted a year and a half. And then 11th grade, I actually started writing shit. And I was like, wow, oh my God, this actually feels kind of good. And then like 3 years later, I actually finished it because the first time I wrote it, I wrote a volume through what I think will now be season 4. So, I wrote from 0 to 4, and then it was like 1,100 pages, and it was, not that great. I was learning how to write a book while I was writing a book, and I was kind of refining what I wanted to tell about the story, what was good, what was bad. I was getting older. I was learning a lot more about writing. Then I kind of like started to wrap it up and like finalize it the summer before college, and then I kind of worked on it into the first year of college, and then I was like, oh man, I kind of want this to be a podcast or a book, or I want to read it because I loved voice acting and telling stories, and that was kind of a big thing for me. So I started putting it out when I was on a summer internship in Houston, and I was like, I'm just going to post a chapter a week. Obviously, that didn't follow up, but I did put out the whole thing at some point, and I kind of put it off until like my 12th grade graduation year, when I was like, I'm gonna take 7 hours of class, and I'm gonna write the 7th Valkyrie, and then I'm gonna be famous. And I did that except for the famous part, and I didn't make any money, and then I hadn't applied for like any jobs, and I got really sad, and I ended up working at a restaurant for a while. Great restaurant, and no hate for the restaurant industry, but it was just not what I was expecting coming out of as like a summa cum laude graduate from a top engineering school with a really nice degree. Pride hits hard when you realize like after a certain point of college, like you can't just keep like hoping that the next best thing is going to happen to you. You have to actually make shit happen. So, fortunately, because amazing things happened to me, and I got a job in Costa Rica. And then I was so happy about that job that I didn't care when I was writing the next one, because I was like, oh my God, I'm living in Costa Rica. What? I can write this whenever I want. And then I've told this story, but about 6 months later, the job turned a little sour. We had some fallings out. There was a lot of pressure. It was a very, very intense situation, and I just kind of wanted to get out. So I started writing it like a maniac. So I was like, this will be my ticket to freedom. And that all built up to the pandemic, where it was like, oh shit, I got put on furlough. Like, I don't have anything to do, but I still need to come back to my job. So this is like a 2-month vacation. And that was when I put out season 1. And I was like, oh, this is going to fly. But again, like, I didn't know anything about putting out a series like this, but I also knew that I didn't want to listen to the rules of anybody else. It's kind of the curse. I was like, I'm going to do this with my rugged individualism. And everyone's like, well, how? And I was like, no fucking clue. So I spent I changed jobs and met some wonderful people. And then over the course of the next 2 years or so, basically until the end of 2022, I was trying to figure out what the hell this business model was going to look like. I was asking everybody I could. Audio is a weird space. So I went and talked to people in the industry, and I flirted with, there was some BBC radio people who I was like, not even BBC radio people who knew people who knew people who knew about the BBC. And I was like, oh, I'm going to pitch to you guys. Nothing came of it. Anyway, then some turmoil hit end of 2022. I lost several jobs, gained some new ones, built a client base in Costa Rica, bought a penthouse apartment and a gym because I was making a lot of money, and then realized that I lost one of my biggest jobs, and then I couldn't afford all the things that I'd bought. And yeah, spent the majority of 2022 figuring out the cascading set of messes I'd kind of put out for myself, while I also kind of looked for guidance and tried to figure out how to get this all off the ground. Like 2021, 2022, I was like, all right, I'm helpless. I don't know anything about anything. Like, please, someone just help me understand this. And I knew it was something good, and it was a good series, and it wasn't taking off. And I was just like, I knew I needed something. There was some missing piece. And I was trying to take every piece of advice all at the same time. And when they didn't work out quickly, I would back out of it and be like, oh, bad piece of advice. And I'd kind of go. It was kind of that same problem of like, it's way easier to talk about all of your ambitions and way harder to actually make them happen. It takes hard work. It takes a lot of hard work, and a lot of the 7th Valkyrie stuff is not my most favorite thing to do. Like writing, it's like, if you get into it, it's really, really fun. But there's some parts of it that are just like, all right, just gonna sit down and log another hour of writing, and it's an epic. I was like, I did this to myself, But I don't know. It's interesting to kind of look back on it and be like, okay, cool. Like, turns out my laziness was not, stayed with me. Anyway, all this led to, like, the start of 2023. I started a new job, shifted off some old clients that, were kind of worth more more trouble than they were worth. And eventually also, kind of put on the back burner a few big projects that I'd been kind of overreaching to try and fulfill. And that's kind of where we found ourselves at the beginning of this year. It's like I was kind of starting this new place. I was kind of getting a little bit more flexibility. I had the efficiency. I had the experience. And I didn't even realize it, but I had you guys. Like, I had this community that had grown up kind of almost without me even paying attention, because you guys appreciated the work. And it was like I was out here doing all these things like, oh, well, what if I have a marketing ad strategy and try and do this thing and that thing, and we cross-preference, and everyone's just like, just fucking give us another book. We'd love it. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm working on that, but I would like to tell you guys and give you guys some entertainment in the meantime, hence these little podcasts. And that brings us to today. I'm 33 chapters in. I feel like I've been saying that one for a while. I just want to freaking get that one done, and I'm going to get it done this week. We're closing in on, like, the end of this season, and, we've got the whole world ahead of us. And there's been little quirks along the way, working with editors and bringing in people and trying with agents and pitches and, spins and circles and getting friends to read things and all sorts of details that I could have gone into. But really the truth is it's been a long journey and we've gotten here. But once again, to all you guys, like, the little realizing that there are people who are listening and paying attention, and my boy Keith responding, anyway, it's cool to be here now, and to see, like, after all that building and all that toiling, it was always the same project since I first set it out in 5th grade, but it's finally alive and it's finally where I want it to be. And it's, I think of it like the video game analogy, where you go back and you play like remastered video games and you're like, this is how I remember it, and you see the original and you're like, ugh. This is it's like I'm finally telling the story that speaks to me as much as I wanted that 5th grade, epic to do. So anyway, and one thing about the 5th grade epic that still has is big old monsters. So anyway, I couldn't get away from just, like, amazing animals. Like, I liked them even when I was in 5th grade. So anyway, now we're here. And that's a short little, or let me see how much time we're at. Oh, not too long story of kind of my little mini epic journey to get here. I'm glad that you guys have been there with me all along the way, or not all along the way. It'd be weird if you guys have been fans of me when I was a 5th grader. I'm glad that you guys have been with me recently, and I'm hoping that we got good energy. Like, we're starting something new. We're moving. We're rocking and rolling. Anyway, I'm sorry, I was getting distracted. Time to go. So hope you enjoyed this podcast. Love you, and then I'm sure someone's coming in after me to. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the 7th Valkyrie podcast, brought to you by me, Bram Cooper. Sorry, I almost read the script. You said character introduction. Is that supposed to be me? Sorry, I'm a little new to all this scripting stuff. They said I was going to be a star. Anyway, to get the full experience, including all available seasons, extra artwork, bonus features, and behind-the-scenes content, you can download the 7th Valkyrie application on the onlines from the link in the description. Like, what kind of link we talking? Is that like there's a big chain? I don't know. I'm gonna let the techie boys get back to this, and I'll get back to my I don't know. I'm not quite sure how I got here. So anyway, it's good seeing you. What do I just? Yeah, do I keep talking? No. Oh, you're gonna cut. You said you're gonna cut this out. What does that mean? Is everything okay? All right. Well, bye. Download the application.